This is Mike, and everybody watches AccessTV.org.
Welcome to Conversatio. I'm your host, Prince Lee, and today's show is the added responsibilities of the modern minister. Today we have as a guest Reverend Stephen Camp, who's the pastor at our Faith Congregational Church in Hartford, here in Hartford, Connecticut. Thank you very much for being here today, Stephen.
Good to be here. Thanks.
We've done a number of shows regarding different issues in the community, and many of the times part of the solution to the problem was suggested that the clergy needed to play a little more of an active role. And I got to thinking, how much responsibility does the minister have as his position as a leader of, at the very least, his congregation, if not the community?
Well, I think there is a role for the clergy in the community. I think it's a rather important role still in our community. The fact of the matter is, those who come to church, they sit and worship each week, and they give the minister license, if you will, for 30 minutes, 20 minutes, however long that sermon is, to offer some kind of ways to add to the uplift of their living. And that's a pretty large responsibility each week that goes on in every local church around the country, around the world. And so the responsibility is an important one, and it should be valued. It should be a responsibility that encompasses a lot of different areas and facets of life, because the audacity of preaching is about all kinds and all parts of life. So I think that there's a great responsibility in preaching and ministering in our time and in our day.
Well, can it be burdensome?
Sure. Like anything else, I think it at times can be burdensome, because sometimes there are hard truths to be told, and there are difficult ways of expressing thought. But for the most part, I think it is a rewarding profession. At least I've enjoyed it over all of these years that I've practiced ministry. And I use the word practice because you never get it right. You just keep trying and trying your very best and trying to be faithful. And in doing so, over the years, you accumulate some sense of what works and what doesn't. I think part of what does work, Prince, is that it is not just that worship moment for the minister. It is also what happens in the pastoral side of ministry, what happens in the community side of ministry. There are all kinds of ways that a pastor and a preacher, a minister, rabbi, and imam are called to be a part of the larger community. And all that's important.
Personally, I feel that everybody is in need of a certain amount of health, education, and welfare. As a matter of fact, there used to be this old department in the government. I guess since it's gotten broken down, but you have God who is to administer the health, education, and welfare of the people, and there's a responsibility. And there's different groups involved in that administration, be it the government, be it the local union, the nonprofit. So it's a highly competitive mix of people who the people look for to like help me with these items. And do you feel that competition, like say from the nonprofits or even corporate America?
Competition, no. Partnership, we try to find in lots of different ways. The church has to have someone, and that usually is the pastor, to help manage the day-to-day affairs of a local church. That happens in different degrees in different congregational settings, but it is important to have someone who is a leader among the people who they serve. But it's also important to have partnerships with others outside the congregation, like union folks, for example. My congregation is very involved. We supported the picket line when Spectrum Care had a workers' dispute. We supported the workers and the union, and we tried our very best to make sure that the community had a visible voice in that matter. That is ministry, in my opinion. We tried to be there, for example, when the whole education debate was going on, and we sponsored forums at the church so that people could understand the issues more intimately. The governor came to the congregation and to that evening activity and helped to put some focus on education. Some credit us as saying that moment helped to move along the education package we have today. So ministry is really important as you go forward in the partnerships around the community.
Well, I know of your particular congregation, Faith Congregational, to include a number of people who are very socially active. And you have a number of organizations or ministries within the church that are devoted to these types of activities. You have a social action committee, I believe. You have the active men's and women's ministry. What about the actual setup? You are a UCC church.
United Church of Christ.
Okay.
Yes.
That being said, isn't some of the administration kind of like taken off your shoulders there?
No, the way our system
position
works.
Of the moderator.
The way our system works is that the decisions that are made for the community's life are made by the congregation. The power that the pastor has in a congregational setting is that of being persuasive. It is not an autocratic power. It is not a dictatorial power. And so the congregation decides for itself what it will do in its corporate life. And that is something I'm very comfortable with. I, in fact, applaud it because I think when the people decide what is best for their living, they will act out of that more faithfully. And so that's what we have in our system at Faith Church and in the United Church of Christ. But it also allows us the freedom to do things that are on the cutting edge. For instance, we can, as a congregation, we are not bound by the other parts of our denominational system that we must do it their way. We can do our own thing as a congregation, and that is for us.
So the individual church and the individual congregation has that type of autonomy.
It has autonomy, but we're also in covenant with other parts of the church as well. In other words, we have to consider the things that the other parts of the church, the national church or the conference of churches, what they might suggest for us, we take seriously. But we don't have to do any of it if we choose not to do it. That's where the leader comes in, is making sure that the conversation inside the congregation is one that is healthy, that is one that is life-giving and not rancorous. And I think we do a good job at Faith.
It's very, very interesting, that the autonomy of that, because people have label anything, and there are certain labels that go out with the UCC.
Well, it gives us a focus. It gives the congregation has a focus. I guess that's why we're able to. We're a congregation here in Hartford, and we have a ministry that we are in partnership with lots of folks at the church in Haiti. This past year, we sent several $1,000s to build water wells and help a school and an orphanage.
Right.
But it's that kind of thing. We do things right in our community. We try to help the schools that are in our immediate community. We happen to live in Clay Arsenal, where it's a very depressed area economically.
Right.
But there's a richness there in that community, and we're trying each week to build a partnership with the people who live there. So there's a sense that the church is not isolated behind the walls, but in fact out in the community trying to do good. And I think that's what churches should be about anyway.
We talk about the Clay Arsenal community. We did a show with one of the fixtures within the community from the old San Juan Center. Now it's Bright Futures Center. And the show is basically of what do our children need? You know, again, I'm going back to this theme of prior shows, what has been said and developed, and what is your take on what our children need?
Our children need us. They need us to be present with them. They need us to teach them. They need us to be there to help them grow, to do the kinds of things that helped us grow. Right. We need to be that kind of example for them. They need our resources. When we are able to accumulate some, quote, things, we ought to be able to give back some to those who need that helping hand. It is not about, just giving away everything to appease our conscience, right. But it really is about being part of a community and helping that community to grow. The children really do matter, and so I think that we all have to pitch in. The old saying, it takes a village to raise one child, but it does take that village. And the church needs to see itself as part of the village. And if it does, good things can happen.
What just jumps up at me is training the family, the community family, what to do. I mean, there are a number of communities within the inner city environments that the parents really don't know what to do, how to train. And I know we have a professor from the University of Hartford was putting that onus, that whole overall onus of somehow learning the family back onto the clergy again.
Mm. Well, we're all learning. I mean, that's goes without saying, right. Or at least it should. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is that yes, a lot of parents don't know what to do, but it's not that they're stupid. They have not been taught. And I think that people want to know how to succeed. They want to know how to be faithful. They want to know the things that will help their children to have a better life than they have had. And I think it is part of the responsibility not only of the church, but of government. It is a part of all of the institutions in our community, education as well, to help to shape the community to be better. And that means that it is not just what happens in Clay Arsenal, using that example, okay. But it means that all of the communities around Clay Arsenal have a stake in what happens in Clay Arsenal. Right. And so we are trying to be advocates of that kind of thing to happen.
Well, the thing is, again, back with the issue of responsibility. Would you agree with the statement amongst our people, black people, that perhaps the church is our one and only institution? Have we placed more importance on that institution than we do any other?
Well, to a certain degree, I guess I would, but I also think that we've spent a lot of time in the church and in other parts of our community trying to build up people to get an education, to get a college education. We now have a generation of young people and middle-aged folk who have college degrees, who have educational attainment, and they are now in a position to do some very good for the community. The church has a role to help inspire them and encourage them to remember where they came from and what they have been about for all these years, and to give something back to the community. That, I think, is the larger role that the church can play, and reminding folk of just how much work there is to do, but we can make it light work if we do it all together.
Well, I was coming from a point of view that if that was a true statement, that if we feel as a people that is our only institution, then by definition, wouldn't that make that whole onus on the leadership within that institution, the clergy, their
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I guess
The expectations
what I'm
of
saying to you, Prince, is I don't believe it's the only institution. I think we do have leaders now in education. We do have leaders now. We just went through an election in government.
Right.
We do have leaders in lots of walks of life now that are contributing to the whole of our community. And I think that the church, yes, is a major part of that success,
Right.
but it is not the only thing anymore. There used to be a time when the education of our people pretty much solely happened in the church or in the community of
Right.
faith. That's not always true today, and so we have to recognize that as a faith community, that we are in fact partners with other parts of our community, because the arrogance of thinking that the church has all the answers for the community will be the downfall of our community if we're not careful.
You mentioned a number of times now about education.
Mm-hmm.
What types of things that you feel that can be done for us to have more of a stake in the own education for our people? I mean, you have so many school systems within so many cities that are being absorbed by the state, and it's just that we don't seem to have really a clue in the educational process or the management of that process, or have a meaningful stake in the management of that process.
Well, I think we personally, I think that we do know what works in education. The problem is we don't have the will to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we've got to figure out, for instance, we know that if we teach children through K through 3, they have a better chance of making it through high school.
Right.
But we don't put the resources that are always necessary to help those children and in that early stage of their development. We know that if you have arts and sports and things like that in school, that our children are more rounded, they are more gifted, their gifts emerge more fully.
Mm-hmm.
But we take away the money for sports programs and music programs and the arts, and we take away, and it has a detriment in our community, because we are a creative people. We do many things. The reality is, I think the church has a word to say about all of that. The church can do some things, but we can't do it all.
Right.
But what we can, one of the major things we can do is speak in the public square. The public education is important, and I think that we're trying to do that as a community.
While I have you here,
Yes.
one of the things recently has been like an interest of mine is the whole concept of crime, and not just crime, but the reporting of crime.
Mm-hmm.
And the concept of how that gets reported, and whether or not that reporting is the equivalent to snitching.
Mm.
That's been like, a concern. We've had some people in regarding that. And I think about what can the church do to get its memberships who are aware of what's happening in their community to have a different attitude about the reporting of what they know is going wrong.
Yeah, crime is important. It particularly grieves me to see black teenagers killing each other. It particularly grieves me when we see crime from our young people in particular. It's grieving to know that our prison system is unfortunately the new Jim Crow. It's particularly distressing that crime just seems to be around us all the time in our society, even more so than statistically some of our countries across the world. I guess the thing that I think we in the church have to do is keep sounding the alarm. We have to keep talking about the reality of how crime affects our community. We have to keep reminding those who have the levers of power that they have a responsibility not just to warehouse people, to get them away, but to do the work of educating people, to do the work of rehabilitating people, to do the work of finding work for people when they come out of jail, so that they come out and they have a meaningful, purposeful life. And that crime is not the only option that they see in front of them. So it is all of our responsibility. It's all of our fault, if you will. It is all of us that have to come together to make for another reality in our community. There are a lot of good people out here, and I just think that we have to do good where we can. And crime is a tough issue to deal with.
Could you embrace something like a church, shall we say, posting of those individuals in the community, well, kind of like an outing of, well, you know so-and-so is doing wrong. Even if so-and-so's mother or grandmother might be a member of the church or a member of a fellow church.
Well, I think there are some privacy issues. I think, crimes of sexual assault and things like that, there are protocols for that. But I'm more about if someone has done their time and they've been to prison, they come out and they are trying to start a new life. Why can't we help them start that new life? And why can't we be supportive? If they decide to go in a wrong direction, it's going to come out sooner or later anyway. But the hope is that the church might be a positive force, might be a place that a person can get the grounding that maybe they missed somewhere along the way, and have a better start, a restart in their life that makes a difference in their life. And so outing somebody that they did something in their past doesn't square with me. That we have to forgive, and we have to keep going, and we have to try to be that force of good in the community. And I think that's what people coming out of prison or been in trouble or trying to figure out their life is trying to figure out, how am I going to be in the community? Well, at Faith Church we say, come, and you're welcome here.
Well, that's perhaps more of a positive solution as opposed to, because it gets to be kind of hairy if you're talking about reporting, and it's can be very controversial. On a personal level, you were raised in the Hartford area,
I was.
and you made your bones within the UCC Church and other areas. Did you have any type of regional responsibility?
Well, I worked for the national setting of our church for a couple of years in our largest denominational entity, and was the associate director there. And then I moved from there to be what is called in our denomination a conference minister, which is a regional person. I had 300 churches in North Carolina and Virginia that I had responsibility for. And beside that, 20 years of ministry in local churches. So I grew up at Faith Congregational Church. I ran around there as a child. I was baptized at probably one of the first children baptized in the building that we now worship in.
Right.
And but it's kind of a
Well, that type of
a
response.
different feeling sometime when you
Yeah.
come home after many years of being away in ministry.
Yeah, I was figuring with that type of responsibility that you had in that regional capacity, that your feelings were coming home and making a difference here.
Well, I wanted to come back, and I was glad for the opportunity. I wanted to come back and give back to the community that nurtured me in the faith.
Right.
Faith Church was very important in my growing years and in my maturity. They taught me the kind of basic things that I hold dear today in terms of how I see the world, how I see my faith. It was the Sunday school teachers and the worship experiences that I learned when I was a child at Faith Congregational Church. And so coming back is an opportunity for me. Being back at Faith Congregational Church is an opportunity for me to give a little back.
Right.
And I hope I'm doing a credible job. I hope that people appreciate it. But it's been fun for the most part. I'm just having a great time.
Well, I believe so. Then you're also involved with the Christians Activity Council,
Mm-hmm.
which I guess is kind of like a department for social
they
good.
They do a great
with
work.
inside UCC.
They do a great work. They're related to the United Church of Christ, but they really are a community organization that their goal is to uplift the community. They do a fantastic work in housing development, in training people to learn how to work with housing and to own a home. They're doing a lot of different kinds of ministry that really are making a difference. I'm also part of Immaculate Conception, which is right in the neighborhood where we are right now, which helps the homeless in this community. They serve any number of people, men and women, children, any day of the year. So there are a lot of good things that to be a part of, and I'm very pleased to be able to help.
Well, I know that your predecessor at Faith was also, part of the Christians Activity Council.
Yeah.
Michael Williams. So maybe it's like
Sure.
Traditional type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
which is very commendable for the heads of the Faith congregation.
Well, Faith has always been a church that has been social justice minded, and to different levels and different degrees over the years. But for me, it's very important that we are not just isolated within the walls of the church, but that we are very much a part of the community that surrounds the church. And so we're trying, with whatever resources we have, whatever time we can give, whatever dollars that are available, to try to make a difference in the greater Hartford community and beyond.
I was thinking about, again, the theme is the responsibility associated with your role as a minister.
Mm-hmm.
Do more, which suggests that ministers aren't doing enough. And I was thinking that, do you feel that there's such a huge gap, huge amount of inequities, that have to be cured or straightened out, that perhaps the overall community doesn't respect how much the clergy really does? I mean, it's such a big job, so much. Do you realize how much has to be done? So don't fault us, if you don't think we're doing it at a level.
Well, if a person thinks that the clergy only work for a couple of hours on Sunday morning and that's all they do during the week, they're sadly mistaken. I know all of my clergy colleagues are doing their level best to do whatever they can to be helpful in the community where they are and around the churches where they are. We really do try to make a difference as clergy, and I hope that the community does see that and understand that as time goes on. But it really is about being faithful. It's about understanding God as you see God and living out that faith expression. And I think clergy do that well in
Well,
our
I'm glad you
community.
mentioned all of the clergy, and to all of the clergy out there working hard, through your brethren, Reverend Camp.
And sisters.
Thank you very much for your efforts, as we're thanking
Thank you.
for your efforts. Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Reverend.
All right.